In this video, I'm going over the differences between the 5th Godzilla film, titled Three Giant Monsters, The Greatest Battle on Earth, and its American version, Ghidrah, the Three-Headed Monster. Yes, I said Ghidrah, only because that's what the title says. There's a lot to go through, so let's dive right in. Interestingly, the Toho logo is actually in both cuts of the film, making this the first movie in the series to have the logo in the American cut, unless I'm mistaken, though it fades out faster in the US version. Both the title cards of course are different, following the intro credits, which are written differently in both countries' respective languages. When a group of people fail to get a signal of a flying saucer, a shot of Naoko, a reporter, is cut from the dub. After the scene where the shooting stars are falling, we cut to 2 different shots in both versions. The American one shows one falling at Mount Hide, while the original brings us to one of our leads, Detective Shindo talking to a reporter. This section of the scene is removed from the dub. After the princess's plane explodes, we cut again to 2 different locations, with the original showing a scene we saw earlier in the dub. While talking about the princess, did you know her name is actually different in both cuts? The original has her name as Maas Selina Salno, while the American version has it as Selina Salno. A shot of a sign is cut. More dialogue changes ensue, as the possessed princess says she's from the planet Venus, making her a Venusian, while the dub has her say Mars, which makes her a Martian. Both of which are planets you can't live on anyway, but I guess if you're a disembodied voice, it's a different story. Also, when the crowd pokes fun of our planet traveling statement, the shot stays on them a little longer in the original. Following that, we get more name changes, with the princess saying tragedy will occur at Mount Aso, while the dub has her saying the Watagene Mountains. Now, admittedly, I've never visited Japan before, so I looked into these Watagene Mountains and couldn't come up with anything. So if anyone knows if this is a real place or not, let me know in the comments below. After we leave a scene with the scientist, we cut again to 2 different locations. The original has us with Naoko, spending time with her mother and her darling brother, while the dub cuts us to the crew at the meteor site. After it, we cut to the right scene, though the bit with Naoko exiting the car is removed, along with one shot of Shindo on the floor. Footage of the Shobijin being interviewed is shortened down in the dub. Also, Mothra is referred to as a female in the original, while being called a male in the dub. I wonder how one could tell the gender of a Mothra. When the Shobijin sing their song, they are talked over in the dub by one of the guys, and a woman named Emi Sukiyaki, who apparently is a really famous person, translating the song for those who can't understand this mystical language the small beauties speak. A moment with the Shindo family is removed, at least up to the bit with the paper. Though after that, we're again in 2 different locations. The original follows the assassins, while the dub has us with Shindo. Though when we do get back to Shindo, the beginning bit is cut. After this scene, more cut-arounds. This time the dub has the assassin scene from earlier, which follows a scene that plays later in the original, cutting out a bit with the radio. Also, the scene has added music not heard in the Japanese version. The original has us back with Naoko and her brother at Shibuya. Funny though, when this scene plays in the dub, Naoko calls her brother by Shindo. You know, their surname. If you were to just meet your brother on the streets, would you just arbitrarily call them by their last name? You know, the last name you also have? When we get to Mount Aso, or Aso in the dub, yes, I guess no more Watagene Mountains, a little bit of footage is cut. The Rodan introduction scene is all over the place. Bits of footage cut or rearranged, and Rodan's iconic theme music by Akira Ifukube swapped for the Something's Bad Happening music. After this moment, we're again in 2 different locations. My god, I'm only 30 minutes in the movie? The dub has us with the Shobijin, while the original has us with a scene that played 7 minutes earlier in the US version. Following that moment, it cuts to a scene again that was played earlier in the dub, with the moment with the characters listening to the radio broadcast removed. Thankfully after that, we're finally in sync again, only after this scene not to be. When Naoko gets a room at the hotel, she gets room 384, while in the dub, she gets room 386. What a change. When the ladies are in the room talking to each other, an abrupt moment of a ship sailing in the dub is removed. When Godzilla emerges for the first time, a shot of Rodan and a close-up of him are present only in the dub. Also, added music is playing before Godzilla's theme does. After this scene, a moment with the scientist at Mount Hide plays, while the dub has us with Naoko and Salno. The scientist scene was played earlier in the dub before the two got a room at the hotel. The shootout scene is shortened in the dub, with Shindo not even firing at all. When Shindo goes to the princess on the floor, a bit where he is reading a book that she's reading is cut. When the characters are carrying the princess up, a scene where they hear an explosion out the window is cut, along with some more footage either removed or rearranged. Sadly, Ifukube's incredible scores are again replaced with generic stock music. After this scene, should I even bother saying anything else? The dub has us back with the scientist, while the original has us back with the main cast driving to the Tsukamoto laboratory, which is not present in the dub. When it does get to this point in that version, we are already at the laboratory. When the princess is giving the warning of King Ghidorah, or Ghidrah as the dub calls him, the last bit of the scene is cut, which follows a scene with Ghidorah attacking a small town, only to cut back to this moment. The original does something similar to this. When both Godzilla and Rodan are fighting, we're abruptly cut back to the scientists at Mount Hide, a scene that was played after Godzilla's attack earlier in the dub, making Ghidorah roughly appear 8 minutes earlier in the dub. Also, Ifukube's music is cut a bit short when King Ghidorah is fully emerged, and replaced with other music only heard in the dub. The scene with the meeting discussing the monsters is cut back to the fight with Godzilla and Rodan in the original, while the scene remains longer here in the dub. I should also note Ifukube's music is absent again during the fight. When the Shobijin sing their song for Mothra, the lyrics along with the song itself are replaced with stock music. Also, their entire music video is gone. After that, we're with the princess here and the fight here. A shot of people running from a distress signal is cut. A moment with Godzilla battling Rodan, the assassin shootout, and when the characters are in the car, all have music only heard in the dub. When the princess is being shot at in the mountains, music and sound effects of the monsters battling are heard only in the dub. The Japanese version is silent.
Almighty deity, creator of the universe.
The American version also cuts back to the monsters quicker, but shortly reverts back to this scene. A similar cut happens seconds after. And finally, the end title cards are different in both cuts. Wow, that was a lot of rearranging. More so than I think any other film I've tackled so far. The English distribution company called Continental took the liberty of editing the film the way it was here, simply to help speeden up the pace, which meant cutting a lot of filler scenes, which these earlier films were prone to doing at this point anyway, and rearranging footage to draw the monster action closer. One thing I'll always fail to understand though is why change the music? I mean, granted, Ifukube's score is mostly here, but if you've been listening to his music as long as I have, you can definitely tell when his music is being played and when it's not. Why not just leave it in to begin with? Finally, the English voice acting itself. I admittedly like it. I feel the voices are okay if played a little cartoony most of the time, and thankfully, no Asian accents. They're just speaking normally.
These monsters are as stupid as human beings.
Overall, it's sad that Mothra vs. Godzilla left so much intact just for this movie to edit everything all around. But who am I to tell you otherwise? Maybe you like the way the American version was handled. If you did, let me know in the comments, because in the end, it's up to you to decide the version you like, and if you want to read subtitles or not. Thanks for watching toward the end, and I hope to see you next time.
Ghidrah, the three-headed monster, battles Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan for mastery of the world. Men quake before the terror of their unleashed fury. Ghidrah, the three-headed monster.